What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. We all have those Pokemon that we love, and many of them can be agreed upon as universally beloved designs, where some Pokemon end up as perpetual favorites. But unfortunately, just because certain Pokemon are adored by pretty much everybody, it doesn't make them useful in combat. And in fact, some top choices for popularity are really, quite frankly, bad. So let's look into some Pokemon that everybody likes, but that we wish were much better. Number 6. Ninetales. I'm not saying that Ninetales is an outright bad Pokemon in all aspects. I did use one in Soul Silver, and then used one again as a regional form in Alola, and I enjoyed it very much. But it pales in comparison to its supposed counterpart, Arcanine. I don't even know why they're supposed to be considered equal when they give the legendary dog 50 extra points in its base stats for no reason. This means that despite Ninetales being more specially focused and Arcanine being physical, the Fiery Fox still has a lower special attack, so why bother using it at all? Even its one upside being its speed is undercut by Arcanine getting easy access to extreme speed, and getting reliable healing moves on top of that is just the final insult. Even the one area that it might have had over its constant rival, being gifted a regional variant, was co-opted a generation later. Not from a design perspective, if you ask me. I still love Alola Ninetales, but Hisuian Arcanine, despite its type combination being so bad, somehow makes it work and launches it up to the same play tier as Alola Ninetales, or so I'm told. Side note, this led me to also learn that apparently there's a new bottom tier for Pokemon called ZU, or Zero Used, meaning they get absolutely no play whatsoever for any serious contenders. And that's where poor Ninetales is. So what could we possibly do to improve this cleverly designed Pokemon? Well, leaning into what makes it unique would be good, namely things like the ghost coverage that it gets. I'm not saying that it needs to be a ghost, although I wouldn't mind if that happened, but it deserves more attacks than just 2, and sometimes Hex. Also, could we please buff its special attack so Arcanine isn't better at its one use case? Also, maybe this is too much, but since it does get Drought, maybe the Sun could buff the special defense of fire types like Sandstorm does. I'd even take just a 10% or something. But then I guess that would also have to apply to Arcanine as well, so it wouldn't exactly be focused on Ninetales here. Number 5. Luxray. This is one of those Pokemon synonymous with the Sinnoh region, and for good reason. Being one of only 4 options that you could find before the first major milestone in the region, it would be rather difficult to avoid this light-up Lynx. And the fact that Shinx is an electric type makes it stand out from the usual early game selections. But better than Bidoof and Kricketot is not a very high bar. I alluded to this just last week, but Luxray in the original Diamond and Pearl was severely limited because Shinx didn't even learn any electric attacks until after it evolves. So before Luxio, it'll be really hard for this thing to pull its weight. And even then, Spark is the only electric move that's a physical attack until level 42, well after you get a Luxray. You can use some other moves if you want to rely on its much lower special attack, but the point is, why did they make this thing so limited? Even in Gen 4, other Pokemon had more complex movesets, so despite practically everyone picking up a Shinx for their team, it is unexpectedly lacking in utility. And you would think it would get better with time, but now Luxray's only other physical electric attack is Wild Charge, but it doesn't learn it until level 80, and of course it is a recoil move, so it damages you too. There are at least some special moves sprinkled throughout, like Shinx actually starts the game with Thundershock now, so that is an improvement, but fixing its moveset would still go a long way in helping Luxray out. Like, why exactly can Shinx not learn Zing Zap? It's a decent physical electric attack that's only on 2 other Pokemon, and this line could easily be spiky enough to pull it off. Or at the very least, we could buff its special attack so it's not on the back foot its whole life. Of course, there's also the fact that pure electric was by far the most common way to see the electric type in the early gens, so maybe Luxray could stand out a bit more if, say, it had the dark type added on. People have been wondering why it wasn't one already, and it might actually love having that to give stab power to its biting and crunching that it does. Number 4. Wyrdeer. Okay, I'm not gonna pretend like Wyrdeer is on the same level of all-time classics that we can't get enough of, But if people wanted to see any Pokemon get a little attention after all this time, it was Stantler. And just getting a new evolution would have been a landmark change on its own, but Pokemon Legends Arceus went above and beyond for Wyrdeer, essentially making it a pseudo-mascot of the game in all the promotional materials. And with it being the first of the rideable Pokemon in the game, that means that you're gonna travel with it for the entirety of the Hisui region, creating a bond. And all of that would be great if Wyrdeer didn't suffer the exact same fate as its previous stage. As of now, Wyrdeer is also listed in that ZU tier, meaning that despite all the effort to finally improve Stantler, it amounted to very little. Apart from a new signature move, I suppose. Except not really, because the move isn't even in Scarlet and Violet, so almost as soon as it showed up, this bigger horn Pokemon disappeared, not being allowed in the most up-to-date games at all. So even if it doesn't do much, at least let Stantler gain the Psychic type by evolving. But even then, it never really made sense to me how this thing evolved, because you have to use the Agile-style attack, but Wyrdeer is noticeably slower than its base stage. So how exactly does training with speed make you end up slower? So let's make Wyrdeer faster. Doesn't have to be by much, but you could take some of that excessive HP and make it a tiny bit faster, so that it wouldn't be totally useless. Oh, and, actually let it in the game like other Hisui Pokemon got to be. Number 3, Tropius. I won't spend super long on this one because I've mentioned it before, but good grief, this is embarrassing. Tropius' design is incredible. It's like they said, hey, do you remember that lackluster starter that we made last time? What if we did that, but actually kind of cool, and it could fly? This is one of the best ideas to come out of the Hoenn region, and that's really saying something. But as impressive as the thing looks, it has an atrocious blend of unfortunate qualities. First of all, it's quad weak to ice, so the slightest frost will do it in, but why are its stats so puny? This thing is not built like a mid-game fully evolved Pokemon. Not a single one of its stats are in the triple digits, and both of its attacks are somehow lower than Bellsprout's. And plus, a 51 speed is not gonna let you outrun much. So there's really just so much that we could fix here, and while it is nice that its special defense and HP are its highest stats, that's not really gonna help it live with its current type matchups. So we could rework it a bit to have it be physically focused instead. It's honestly a bit strange that a giant tree dinosaur can't take a hit, but if that's not enough, an ability to bolster its stats, whether it's a new signature one, or one that already exists like stamina, could be just the thing that Tropius needs to live up to its amazing design inspirations. Number 2, Trevenant. Another really cool Pokemon that seems to be on the ropes is regrettably Trevenant. If I didn't love the sturdy Chestnut so much, this arborous apparition would easily be my favorite grass type in the Kalos region. A tree haunted by a spirit that animates its branches to be hands and the roots to become legs is an incredibly creative idea, and the fact that it's not a rock fake-out gives it some extra points in my estimation, not to mention one of the overall best shiny forms in the entire franchise, but that's why it hurts so much that this Pokemon is so inadequate. Trevenant is another poor member of the ZU tier, and believe you me, there are plenty of stinkers in that space. However, the Elder Tree Pokemon does not seem to deserve such an embarrassing fate. I imagine a big part of that is actually its low speed, because the attack is pretty solid, but of course, arguably, its most glaring problem is its counterpart Gourgeist overshadowing it by having the size mechanic, which provides a variation in its stat distributions, meaning that you can catch multiple different ones for any situation. And to further aggravate this problem, we have seen so many grass and ghost types since then to completely leave Trevenant in the dust. So I don't think it would be asking too much to give the poor thing access to Trick or Treat instead of just Forest's Curse, because it's not super effective against grass, but it is super effective against Ghost. So that would help Trevenant out tremendously. Also, maybe asking a bit much, but a new ability that lets it sap health every time it makes physical contact would be amazing. And it would be tonally fitting for the cross-section of plants with the spirits that can steal your life force. That way even a strong wood hammer would let you draw back in a little of your HP. If not that, at the very least weak armor might be something to let it creep up that speed stat, but its defense is already so low that probably wouldn't be great. So I guess we'll have to settle for buffing its special defense, because that seems to be the one area Gourgeist doesn't excel in. Number 1, Bastiodon. As far as fossil Pokemon go, we did get to have Aerodactyl as a traditional sort of ancient creature that you would expect to see, but no actual dinosaurs until Gen 4 was honestly scandalous. And for some reason they skipped right over the main ones that you would be looking for, but I was still happy to have Shieldon from the armor fossil. I appreciated the look of it over the other ones, but also the pure rock of the Rampardos line was boring compared to the added steel. And more than that, Bastiodon was specifically designed to be an impenetrable wall, even being able to link faces together to create a fortress. So then why is it so bad at that exact job? Bastiodon, even with its defenses being through the roof, easily in the top 10 defenses of all Pokemon, crumbles far too easily. Even though the Shield Pokemon has 8 resistances and an immunity, the fact that it has 2 quad weaknesses to ground and fighting, which just so happen to be 2 of the most common offensive types in the game, leaves a theoretically durable Pokemon to falter a lot more than you would expect, even to much weaker opponents. Now, it is true that Bastiodon gets sturdy, so that comes in handy to cling to life. That is unless somebody's using an arm thrust or a bone rush to work past it, or even a sand tomb, frankly. So it's better than nothing, but still easily played around. However, that is still a much better option than its hidden ability, Soundproof. I don't know whose bright idea that was, but sound moves are largely normal type, which means that a rock and steel Pokemon is going to quad resist them anyway. So what could possibly be done to improve this prehistoric hunk of metal? Well, the solid rock ability would be much better. Not only does it already fit on this beefy fossil Pokemon, but it cuts the damage of incoming super effective attacks. So to any fighting or ground fired your way, it would only be regularly super effective instead of guaranteeing to knock you out in one hit. Also, why in the world can this super slow Pokemon not learn Gyro Ball? That would be an amazingly strong attack boosted by its natural steel typing. So let it take advantage of that low speed. But at the very least, if we could maybe give it a little bit more on the special side, since Rampardos clearly has the physical side on lock, most people probably wouldn't expect a moderately strong special attack coming from a steel bulkhead like this. But those are just some of the ways that we could possibly touch up some Pokemon that are beloved, but just don't seem to hold up as things are now. But of course, there are so many more cool Pokemon that are in need of this type of improvement, so which Pokemon do you wish were better? Let me know down in the comments. Also, be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded.